Sit on my cheesecake. Sitting on cheesecake. Anyway, actionable ways to improve the working conditions in the anime industry. And why buying disc/streaming subscriptions isn't one of them. Update, I wrote a follow-up piece to this one after a reader's question. Please read that as well. In the recent months, there has been actual awareness raised towards the substandard working conditions in the animation industry in Japan. About damn time. The poor conditions range from low wages, lack of long-term benefits from full employment, as many in the industry are employed as freelancers, and cultural inspections to work long, intense hours. None of these issues are unique to the animation industry. They are systematic to many industries throughout the entire world. Luckily, that makes addressing these issues straightforward, as they have been examined for decades in all cultures. What follows below are actionable steps that can be taken to address these issues. But first, we have to debunk one specific understanding. Dig the wax out of your ears and listen very closely. Working conditions can never be improved through capitalist instruments. In simpler words, this means that no customer action can ever bring about positive change to labor by the very definition of capitalism. To do so would directly contravene the central purpose of capitalism. I don't know this big word, so let's learn it. Heck. Okay. Contravene. Cut. Contravene. Violate the prohibition or order of law, treaty, or code of conduct, or conflict with right, principle, etc., especially to its detriment. Got it. Free healthcare. Damn, I'm hyped today. Stretchies. For the love of God, stretchies. Thank you, Cthulhu. Hackers. I've done nothing but fall on my ass for the past decade. My parents are in their right to treat me like a little kid when it comes to school. I suppose, everyone needs their own, standards or whatever. Structure is important. As long as they're not bullying you, I guess. But I don't know how it feels. I'm basically an orphan. So, I'm glad you have parents that are looking out for you. I finished the thing for Morph as best I could with my current level of skill with Clip Studio Paint. Morph now has hair. Oh snap! Morph with hair! In simpler words, this means that no customer action can ever bring about positive change to labor, by the very definition of capitalism. To do so would directly contravene the central purpose of capitalism. Let me state this even more directly. Buying discs and streaming subscriptions will not and cannot help workers. Customer action will do nothing. Citizen action, on the other hand, will. These labor issues are systemic, not individual. Therefore, they have to be addressed systemically, not individually. Revenue raised from any particular project through disc sales, streaming subscriptions, even merchandising will only go to those involved with the particular project, with a number of capitalist bodies, the production committee, divvying up the revenue amongst themselves. Here's a short explainer on the production committee from Animator Support. About production committees. One of the causes of this industry discourse can be found in the structure of anime industry in Japan. For anime that needs a large amount of money, most shows have the authority of broadcasting stations and revision teams, so they make a production committee. More than half of the revenue from selling goods from the work and selling broadcasting rights overseas becomes financing for their committee. This means that the workplace this means that in the workplace, unless that money gets reinvested, there will be little income for animators, no matter how much of a success the show is. I am siding right now because, of course, I'm relating this to the struggles with unionization and, I guess, just better worker treatment in the video game industry. It is very common for big companies like your EAs and your Activisions and your Ubisofts to lay off a bunch of workers even after a major success. And so there's a common practice in the video game industry where people are even taken out of the credits retroactively if they leave the team or they stop working or they burn out and can't work before production is finished. Sometimes you'll be taken out of the credits if this was gonna be your last project with said team or with said company. If the game hasn't shipped yet, and because of patches and stuff like that, they can always patch your name out of the credits too. A lot of companies or most companies in general, like, I don't know if you know this because capitalism, but they alienate the workers from their labor. They take the profits for themselves, and they pay the people who do the work the bare minimum or less than the bare minimum, because to increase profits you have to decrease the cost of production, and a lot of times that has a human cost. I like talking about this stuff. We should talk about this shit on streams more. Purchases do not force the improvement of working conditions. Even a massive windfall from a project that achieves metric success does not obligate companies to share the increased revenue with workers. They may choose to, but they are not obligated to do so by any means. Don't be tricked by neoliberal ideology. Sorry, that's such a fucking buzzword because of the fucking right. It threw me the fuck off. But it is very true. I mean, even those on the left are like, yeah, no, neoliberal ideology says, oh, just vote with your dollar and all this other shit, Don't be tricked by neoliberal ideology into thinking that markets are the fix to capitalist problems. All that bluster by PR about supporting the industry through legal channels is a smokescreen. Yes, it funnels money to companies, but fails to continue through to workers beyond the most minimal compensation. Blaming piracy for hurting workers is a misdirect tactic designed to shift the onus for employers to treat their workers ethically onto consumers, taking no responsibility themselves. To use this as an excuse for cutting compensation or laying off workers is morally reprehensible. By that same metric, even purchases directly from workers cannot fix the systemic issues. That only addresses increasing the income of the individual workers in question, buying art books, prints, contributing to patrons. These are not good for allowing individual workers to take more personal control over their income streams. But they're not systemic in any way. Only participating workers can benefit. That requires those workers to be both willing and able to produce art books, prints, etc. in the time they have not spent on their usual production work. It also is biased in favor of those workers who labor in ways that produce things desirable to a market, like animator illustrations, and do significantly less for other positions, like production assistants, that do not produce art assets. Yeah, you gotta remember, there is a lot that goes into the things that you love. Again, comparing to the video game industry, not everyone can just jump off the boat and make their own video games. Some people that get the short end of the stick in the video game industry, for example, are not like coders or art or like I guess in this case asset artists. Some of the people who get the most shit, that have some of the highest value that goes unrecognized by a lot of gamers and companies alike are playtesters, which is something that a lot of people want to do. And playtesters are the most expendable parts of production. So they're literally the first to go, and it actually makes it very cutthroat to be one of them, because fighting to keep your position from project to project can be very hard, especially because a lot of people want to play games for a living. So the chance to playtest even as an intern can be really hard, and it's not as fun as you would think. It's much more fun being a streamer, to be honest. I say this only from secondhand experience. I've known someone who did do it, but you're looking for bugs and stuff. You're not playing the game necessarily to enjoy it. You're playing it to break it. There's a lot of labor that you don't see that goes into the things that you like, and not all of it's glamorous, even if you can romanticize it a bit. Even a broken clock. Hell yeah, even a broken clock is right twice a day. There are also small projects like the Animators Dormitory, which are excellent, yet small in scope. They aid the particular individuals participating in the program, but again are not systemic. They're band-aids, helpful in healing small cuts, but do not address the health of the system as a whole. Yet, there are ways to address these systemic issues, and they are citizen actions, not customer actions. You have to act as an engaged citizen, not a customer. Not by spending money on products. Let's list those ways now. A non-exhaustive list of actions. Political strategies. Worker-owned production companies. Production companies could be owned by the workers. Communism. Gonna be right back for a bit to eat pizza. See you in a bit, Drizzle. See you in a bit, Issy. I hope your pizza's good. I am curious on what it is. I hope it's very, very good. Act as a gay citizen. Gotcha. Ooh, Hawaiian pizza. Sweet. I wish I could have pizza too, sauce. I have a bacon. I don't eat bacon. I have a bagel chicken burger sitting next to me for when I go on break. I actually made food ahead of time, so that I go on break and I don't have to spend spoons cooking. Look at me, I'm smart. A non-exhaustive list of actions. Political strategies. Worker-owned production companies. Production companies could be owned by the workers, rather than by a capitalist owner or corporate board. The workers could be in direct ownership of their own labor, and could make production and management decisions themselves, though through democratic processes, rather than dictated to them from above. These have a number of existing options for worker ownership: worker cooperatives, collectives, ESOPs, etc. It might also be possible to create a new sort of company that hasn't yet manifested. There are a number of organizations that promote and support these options. The International Organization of Industrial and Service Cooperatives, CICOPA, the International Cooperative Alliance, CCOOP, the National Center for Employee Ownership, NCEO, US, the Japan Workers Cooperative Union, JWCU. A few examples of companies operating under these models are Cantiga, Mondragon, and John Lewis. I've never heard of any of these! Unionization and collectivization. Trade unions and labor unions have over 100 years of history backing them up with general success. Stymied by attacks that have reduced their participant numbers and compliance, is that just complacency? Complacent? COMPLA CNCE. Yeah, complacence. Heck. For folks that don't know, I have dyslexia. It's hard to read, but I love to read. And we learned to read kind of late because, like many people with learning disabilities, because it was so hard, it was a big struggle to learn and be expected to learn at the same rate of other people. But that's why I love doing stuff like this, because it allows me to continue to, try, because quitting is the bad part. It's okay to struggle. It's just not as okay not to get up. Oh, hold on a sec. Oh god, that's so embarrassing. My roommates heard me screaming, "Free healthcare! Free healthcare!" without context, and it's just the best ever. Oh wait, you can't hear me, can you? Oh no, I did hacking. Good girl, thinking ahead. Free healthcare? Yeah, the thing. The cause of the thingy. Oh gosh, sorry. I'm having like an endorphin rush right now. Because my roommate got me a vape cart. Cause I've been like not having THC in my system for a while. It's been a while, right? And I really appreciate the help that they're giving me. And it's just like, Also, it's really hot, and when I open the door to my room, it's just like, cold breeze. Also, I have to put on my kigurumi because I'm in my underwear right now. My very comfy underwear. That's nice of them. Oh yeah. One of my roommates, the roommate that I'm closest to actually is the one who did it, and she is like really awesome. She went on a road trip lately to visit her family in another state, and actually, I didn't realize how much. I knew how much I missed her, but like when she got back, I was like I actually did ask for a hug because I missed her a lot. Like we're still not open about everything about like streaming and stuff like and whatnot, but like we are as close as we can be right now, and it's nice sometimes, and we get each other in a lot of ways. Found out she has a Ninja Turtles tattoo today, which is really heckin' cool. Her favorite Ninja Turtle is Donatello. My favorite Ninja Turtle is Michelangelo. It used to be Leonardo. I guess that says a lot about me. I used to follow the rules a lot. Donnie is the best. Donnie is fucking poggers. My pen's still charging. Hack. Okay. It's charging. Whew. Okay, back to the article. Unions are worker organizations that allow workers to pool their resources in order to counteract the power imbalance between themselves and capitalists and traditional corporate structures. They bargain for rights, benefits, and wages by holding strikes, refusing to work until demands are met. Negotiations result in compromise. Negotiations result in compromise between the workers and owners. Unions first made their appearance in Japan around the turn of the 20th century, the late Meiji period. They remained weak until after World War II, when the US occupation encouraged their growth. In the years since, however, membership numbers have declined, 55% in 1949 to 18% in 2010, mirroring much of the rest of the world as employment shifted industries. Look here for a presentation by the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare on the current state of labor unions in Japan. There are currently 3 major labor union federations active in Japan: Rengo, Zenroren, and Zenrikyo. International trade unions include the International Trade Union Confederation, ITUC, and the World Federation of Trade Unions, WFTU. More specific to the entertainment industry is the International Arts and Entertainment Alliance, IAEA. If workers joined a union, they would have collective power to bargain for better rights. However, due to the freelance nature of most of the animation industry, a majority of workers would need to join a union. Otherwise, those not part of the union would be hired for work instead. Depending on how it is structured, its current Japanese law bans the use of strikebreakers. That gives more power to labor compared to the US, where a Supreme Court decision in 1938 allowed the use of strikebreakers. Strikebreakers have also, at least in America I believe, have been historically called scabs. People who will break the picket lines. People who will be like, nah, I'm working. Sorry, homie. Essentially people who will work no matter what and compromise the needs of everyone, weakening the movement altogether. Which, of course, makes sense because, you know, gotta work, gotta live, gotta eat. But sometimes holding out for just even a little bit longer makes a huge difference. And people who are strike breakers, people who break that picket line, the effect they have on the rest of the movement can be devastating. There are a few animation industry specific organizations operating, and I am always on the lookout for more. One is AEYAC, a nonprofit organization that focuses on helping young workers who are starting out in the industry. That's one of the most important, I want to say, this is one of the most important one of the most important demographics of workers for helping and getting into like unionization, no matter the industry. Whether we're talking about video games, factory workers, animation, because especially in like art fields, stuff where passion specifically is exploited, there's gonna be a lot of ideology of, oh, we're working you too hard, or maybe you're just not passionate enough. And of course, firing the old people who know better and hiring all the young, straight out of college, straight out of training type people and like using them till they burn out. Which is in the video game industry again. I have more, I keep referring to the video game industry because this is what I have more experience with this kind of stuff with. A big thing that happens in the video game industry, and honestly in like I guess computer science type jobs in general, this will happen a lot, and people will leave the industry altogether, or people in the video game industry will leave video games and go to normal like coding or whatever jobs because they got burned out of the video game industry or they got blacklisted. It really blows. Another is the Japan Animation Creators Association, or JANECA. This is the first labor union dedicated to improving working conditions in the anime industry and only formed in late 2007. They are a group that launched the Young Animator Training Project, known for a few years as Anime Mari, now called Anime Tamago. Two of their founding members were the late Toyu Ashida and Satoshi Kon. A third is Animator Support, which runs a small dormitory of newcomers to the industry. Yet there is a long fight ahead. Many employment opportunities come about through personal connections. So if leadership isn't in favor of unionization, they won't hire members of a union. In cases like that, the leadership needs to be deposed and replaced with ones that are more amenable to labor. Some followers have asked a question about labor unions in the anime industry. So here's a more detailed answer. Labor unions in the anime industry. There was actually one time a labor union was formed in the past. However, in the Japanese anime industry, connections with people are really important when it comes to getting jobs/tasks. So some people of high position do not give jobs to those who join the labor union. As a result, labor unions became worthless. Yeah, because your labor also has to be valued. If they can just get around it, then it's like, fuck you. But like the fact that Satoshi Kon, for example, was someone who was part of this union, or part of this project, I think is like really important. If you don't know who Satoshi Kon is, he is a big name in the anime industry and made a lot of anime that are still beloved to this day. Correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone knows, but I am pretty sure this Satoshi Kon is responsible for such landmark films as Millennium Actress, the anime series with the pink dog. Gosh, that's so vague. And the baseball bat boy. Heck, am I gonna Google it? I'm gonna Google it because my brain hurts. Satoshi Kon. There we go. Satoshi Kon is a Japanese film director, animator, screenwriter, and manga artist from Sapporo, Hokkaido, and a member of the Japanese Anime Creators Association. He's a graduate of the graphic design department of the Mashido Art University. Perfect Blue. I was thinking blue, but I was like, what is the blue? Perfect Blue is something I really need to see because the main character may or may not be a DID system. Perfect Blue, Paprika, Millennium Actress, Tokyo Godfathers. Tokyo Godfathers actually has a trans character in it. But what was the show that I'm thinking of? Filmography. I guess it's filmography. Paranoia Agent. There we go. Pink Dog. Sorry, I just needed that. Paranoia Agent, Paprika. Very, very right. If I had just looked at chat, I would have seen it. But Satoshi Kon does a lot of like horror and psychological anime, which is my bread and fucking butter. So you know I'm all about that. One action that can be taken in the US is for employees of licensing companies to unionize as well. An animation-specific union could be formed, or take advantage of existing organizations. Some vocal performers are already covered in the Screen Actors Guild. Translators could also possibly be a part of the Writers Guild of America, or the more specific American Translators Association, or the International Association of Professional Translators and Interpreters. Unionization may become more difficult as companies grow and are acquired by large media conglomerates, like Sony's acquisition of Funimation. But that makes the fight for labor rights even more critical. Elections and lawmaking. Political parties can have workers' rights as part of their platform. Some even have it as their core. Voting for elected officials that run on a platform of improving labor conditions can contribute to improving the worker environment. In the pre-World War II era, there are many labor movement and socialist parties in Japan, but now there are fewer. One of the Japanese Communist parties, Nihon Kyosinto, the oldest political party in Japan. Another is the Social Democratic Party, Shiminto, which was the largest political party following the first post-World War II election in 1947. Other smaller parties with similar platforms also exist. By supporting political parties with labor as part of their platform, new laws protecting workers could be written and passed. Laws already on the books can also be more strictly enforced if they aren't already. One example is minimum wage. The lowest employers, the lowest employers are legally permitted to pay employees. In Japan, these are not set regionally and by industry, with the average falling between 823 yen hourly in 2017. This is about $750 USD. Heck. This is about $750 USD, close to the $725 US minimum wage, last adjusted in 2009. This is nowhere near enough to stay out of poverty, and there are movements in Japan campaigning for 1,500 yen, similar to the fight for $15 in the US. Wage theft and other labor law violations are an epidemic in Japan, particularly in terms of overwork and illegal overtime, tied to cultural expectations to remain at work for long hours even when work is not being done. Japanese labor law limits work to 40 hours a week, which required overtime pay beyond that. But these hours can be difficult to verify in a freelance environment, particularly if workers are pressured to report fewer hours. At Animators Support explains, why is the salary for Japanese animators so extremely low? The salary for Japanese animators is way lower than the animators in the US. Not only that, Japanese animators can't receive the benefits of a company welfare program. This is because they are hired as a sole proprietor. Though the fact is that they are hired this way so that the companies cut down some expenses. They are not allowed to work outside the company they belong to either, putting in other ways that they're just employees with no regular pay or employee welfare programs. This is very similar to the thing with like private contractors. Like, for example, as a Twitch streamer, I am a free agent, right? Unless I become a partner, like it's technically okay for me to stream on other platforms. But ultimately, Twitch is the main place that we stream. We can stream on YouTube too, but as an affiliate, you're not supposed to multi-stream. That is, stream on Twitch and another platform at the same time. There is stuff like Uber driving and stuff like that. Stuff where the company doesn't necessarily pay for repairs, not unless something happens that is deemed bad on your part. For example, you have to handle a lot of the expenses for certain things, but you're still a free agent. There's actually an epidemic, I will say, globally for this sort of labor abuse. Heck. Sorry, I was kind of looking outside myself for a moment and realizing just how political this stream has gotten. And I'm totally here for it. I'm very happy about it, actually. But I was just having a moment because I was just like, wow, these are the words coming out of my mouth. Labor abuse. Whoa. I even related it to my own job. And I was like, I'm a content creator 24/7. Heck. Yeah, it's always a good topic to discuss. Thank you for the affirmation, Snack. I really appreciate it. Hackers. Wait. HOSSOO312. Thank you for the follow. Shit, that was 2 hours ago? Heck, I'm so sorry. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Your future will be filled with happiness and sadness. But at least we can weather it together, you know? Especially since it's discouraged so much in traditional workplaces. I would say even non-traditional workplaces, honestly. Like, I think it's generally taboo. Like, stuff like you're not supposed to talk about your wages to other workers is like illegal, at least in the US. But I've even had jobs where it's been discouraged and the company said don't do that, even though it's illegal for them to tell you that. Like, they do everything they can to suppress workers and make them like combative towards one another, not seeing themselves on the same side, but in competition with each other. I'm be real here. Sometimes I feel like I'm fucking stupid. Like I have consumed so much like leftist content. Like I have sat and I have fucking watched so much H-Bomber Guy, so much ContraPoint, so much Thought Slime, so much Non-Compete. If any of these names sound familiar to you, these are all big leftist names on YouTube, or at least in my sphere, they're big leftist names on YouTube. And like that's definitely what it had a major effect in radicalizing me. And it was really important. It was really important for me when making my own content to keep in mind like leftism and stuff, which is why we always feel weird in other people's chats when they don't want to talk about political stuff, because the world is inherently political, and like the video game industry thrives on trying to make you not think about the politics of stuff. The anime industry even more so, I would say. Like the fact that a lot of this is obfuscated in a lot of the talking points of, oh yeah, if you want to support the anime industry, just, you know, get a Crunchyroll subscription and all that stuff. It's just like, meh. And it's really sucky because a lot of people are like, oh, you're squashing my fun. Oh, you're being a Debbie Downer. And like, I will say in a general sense, there is a time and a place. I'm not going to come into someone's chat and be like, but what about the workers? But I'm always afraid that if it comes up, I'll have to shut the fuck up about it, and I don't want to put myself in that weird position. So at the very least, that's why we have this, that we use our platform the way we do. Even though sometimes we do feel like, maybe I should just be fun this time, which was something I thought about for this stream in particular, because it's like, hey, I want to celebrate my community, but I'm also, you know, trying to cultivate a community, a certain kind of community. This community is open to very, very many types of people, but that doesn't mean this community is for everyone, and that's not new or different. Every community is different, but I definitely want to I want to demystify some of these practices. I want them to be normalized and talking about, because on a day-to-day basis, I don't necessarily engage with these things, at least not so specifically. And especially thinking about other countries and how they deal with these things is how we get a more global perspective. And I don't just mean me, I mean everyone, or everyone who cares, honestly. Like, you should care about the people who make the stuff that you enjoy. And I don't just mean that in a self-serving way, because, like, oh, you should care about streamers. Yeah, you should. But, like, I love anime, and a lot of anime is made unethically. But that's not as obvious as... fly away in my face. That's not as obvious as in the video game industry, considering video game companies are, like, massively coming under fire because of some of the stuff they do. And still to this day, there are some people who their main issue with stuff like Nintendo is, I can't buy this game. You limited me buying this game, not the exploitative business practices that go into making them, not the worker abuse that happens. Yeah, I was actually really surprised that it's illegal to tell your coworkers to not discuss pay, considering how often you get told that. Yeah, it's super fucking scary, especially when you grow up thinking that, like, there's, like, justice and shit in the world. And again, I was raised by a cop and a lawyer. I thought I knew at least something about what the world was gonna treat me like, even with, like, racism and shit. Even taking racism and transphobia off the table, the average worker is really at a disadvantage. And it's part of the system. It's a feature, not a flaw. I can tell you anime sites. Oh, in terms of watching anime without having a subscription, I'm fine. Or generally. Watching Kamen Rider, now that's what I need help with. But not here. Discord. Political parties that platform around workers' rights generally support improvements to welfare programs as well. The rapidly aging population is putting stress on the system, leaving relatively fewer benefits for the youth who need public assistance. The dwindling workforce also will take on a greater load as more people age out of employment. Cultural strategies. Work culture in addition to political change. Cultural changes also need to be implemented. There are strategies to be deployed in both the work environment and customer environment. In the work environment, a culture that fosters worker well-being must be established. Overwork is an epidemic in Japan. Even when pressure from management is absent, workers often spend excessive time working. There are cultural expectations to spend lots of time with coworkers, even outside the office. There are also complex social conditions surrounding the collectivist culture that some people exhibit compared to individualist cultures. Additionally, the harmful nature that capitalism has wreaked up about the globe has led to suicide being used as a means of providing for one's family. Wait, what? Like, a lot of these links were like really like, oh gosh, I really want to click on these, but I don't want to I don't want to derail myself and not finish the article. You know how you go down to like a well of like this and this and this. Like, I want to like maybe explore some of these links in another stream. Killing yourself to make a living in Japan. Financial incentives reward suicide? This is okay, so trigger warning for suicide. Giving everybody a moment. I'm not gonna stay on this for too long, but I am a little bit. I'm more than curious at this point because this is not something that I knew about. especially because when we did the suicide essay for YouTube, like something that was really on our minds and we were trying to keep in mind was that especially in Japan specifically, suicide has risen since the pandemic for a lot of reasons. It's very complex, and a lot of people will try to otherize, orientalize, like I guess Asian cultures in general, but especially Japan. Ugh, Japan's so weird and quirky. Yeah, ugh, right? It's just another form of racism, and it's really sucky. And some people do recognize that the cultural attitude about suicide is a lot different in Japan than it is in America, and that is true. And some people are just like, oh yeah, it's because they put it up on a pedestal because of like samurai and seppuku. If you don't know what seppuku was, it was ritualistic suicide that happened especially when your master died if you were under them. There was a strict caste system in Japan, and if you were to break certain rules or you were suddenly unemployed in a certain way, then the respectful thing to do would be to kill yourself in a specific way. And some people have definitely romanticized this. Although something like, what was it, the Revenge of the 47 Ronin, I think? I might have gotten the number wrong. Is a story about like a bunch of Ronin who should have killed themselves but decided to get revenge for their master instead, and it became like a big thing, and eventually like a Keanu Reeves movie, I think. But like a lot of people think of it as like, oh, this is why, because they still feel this way. But in reading a book about it, actually, when we were much smaller, physically, I guess, not mentally, literally we found that no, even though it was because it was a social expectation that people were killing themselves, not because they were like, oh yes, this is the perfect thing to do, I am happy to kill myself. People were sad, people didn't want to do it. But also, if you were disgraced, then like sometimes you couldn't get work. And as someone who is disabled and it is hard to work and keep a roof over my head, I can totally understand the pressure of, well, if I don't kill myself, what am I gonna do? So that is something a lot of people have to deal with. And in the context of the pandemic, a lot of people have lost relationships, lost jobs, been stuck at home, been isolated. This isn't just a Japanese problem. This is a global problem. And it really sucks that a lot of people are alone and scared, and have even lost loved ones to COVID and don't know what to do about it. Some people had to watch their fucking relatives die on Skype. There is a global cultural catastrophe happening right now. We are, as a species, traumatized. Anyway, killing yourself to make a living in Japan. Financial incentives reward suicide. Tashiro Matsushita, the Minister of Financial Services, was found dead on September 10th on World Suicide Prevention Day. Goddamn. And what police are investigating as a suicide, he allegedly hung himself in his own home. He will not be the first Japanese government minister to kill himself, and he won't be the last. It was reported that he was struggling with the pressures of his job. According to the GG Press and other sources, the weekly magazine Shukan Shuchio was getting ready to print a story involving Matsushita and an affair involving a woman. Suku Shuchido editors were not available to comment. The last time a cabinet minister committed suicide was in 2007, where agriculture minister Toshikatsu Matsukoda hung himself after allegations of fiscal misconduct. Prime Minister Yoshida Nada said, according to Repeaters, "I'm shocked to hear the sad news. He always gave me encouragement when things were rough." Japan's suicide problem. The timing of Matsushita's death underlines the scale of Japan's suicide problem. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, according to the World Health Organization, despite laws and outlines adopted by the government to tackle Japan's high suicide rate. The numbers of suicides has remained over 30,000 per year for 14 years. That seems quite high. While there have been rises and ebbs, the numbers stay high even as Japan's population continues to shrink. Suicide hotlines in Japan are so overloaded that getting through to a live operator can take 30 or more calls. Sorry, small aside, gotta mention this. This is also a problem in America. During our suicide attempt last year, on April, I believe, 21st, 2020, we called the suicide hotline 20 times. We did not get through. We didn't kill ourselves because we ended up calling a friend and they picked up. It was very scary. We tell people when they like post on Twitter, like the trans lifeline, the trans specific suicide prevention hotline, hey, if you don't get through, don't give up. Here are some other lines to call. In our suicide essay, we dropped four or five different hotlines because it's important to have the different resources. We have 4 or 5 saved in our phone at all times. This is because when you're in like that really bad place, it can be really hard to reach out, and when you're already reaching out and you're not getting the support, it feels like the world is telling you, no, you just shouldn't be here. And we tried really hard to stay here. Hi, I'm still here. I'm very happy about that. But it can be very terrifying. I can only imagine what people are going through in Japan with like how the culture is even more strict about like the burdening of your community onto other people. In America, we're all about individualization. So like the whole thing of like, oh, it's okay to be selfish is something that I feel like is a very American, or at least a very Western way to look at your connection to other people. And to the point where you don't feel like you can get any help can make the whole situation much more hopeless. Continuing. There's a new documentary released in Japan this week that examines why the Japanese government is unable to significantly reduce Japan's high suicide rates. Suicide in Japan does not have the same nuance it does in the West. It's not a religious taboo. The Japanese have a curious history of finding beauty in the act of suicide. Taking one's life is sometimes considered more heroic than defeat. The Japanese word for the act is remarkably straightforward. Jisatsu. It originally means kill oneself. Few euphemisms are used for the word. Suicide in Japan has a long tradition of being a means of apology, protest, means of taking revenge, and dealing with illness. Life insurance spurs people to end their lives? Okay, this is why I was expecting for this article to mention, and this is why I'm still reading because we haven't hit this yet. In America, I know this for a fact, a lot of life insurance policies do not cover suicide specifically. So I am very interested in what makes it, or I guess they already explained how the culture around suicide is different in Japan. So I'm not surprised, but also still surprised. Probably because I'm a fucking American. Yeah, the past few days actually had a huge increase in calls. I think I read it was like 50 or 70 year high. Holy fuck, I'm very not surprised. I'm very not surprised. People are hurting. People are hurting. Rennie Dugan, director of the documentary Saving 10,000, Winning a War on Suicide in Japan, was released in Tokyo just prior to Suicide Prevention Day, says, nobody tries to highlight the real problems and most importantly, what to do about them. Mr. Diangan explained his reasons for putting the documentary together as follows. A complete sense of desperation about the apparent hopelessness of the suicide situation pushed me to buy a movie camera and ask a 22-year-old former student of mine to operate it. It was a complete ridiculous thing to attempt. Most documentaries on this topic like to show corpses and feed on the tears of tragedy. I call them tragedy vampires. Nobody tries to highlight the real problems, and most importantly, what to do about them. I planned to interview 10 people, but it turned out to be 100. I think people like underdogs, and admired the complete futility of the task we were attempting, so very few turned down our requests for interviews. With so many people helping out, I think we can call this movie a genuine grassroots effort. Tokyo English Lifeline. which offers free counseling and emotional support to its lifeline, had the first ever screening of the film as part of a raising awareness of World Suicide Prevention Day. The documentary posed a very good question. I think I've seen this. I think I saw this in school. I think they showed this to me in college. Sorry, continuing. The documentary poses a very good question. Why is it that life insurance companies pay out on suicide? Stop paying people to kill themselves. Stop incentivizing people to die and leave their families alone. Etsuji Okamoto, a researcher at the Japanese Institute of Health, makes the same arguments convincingly in his 2010 essay, Suicide and Life Insurance. An English translation is at the bottom. Ooh, I'm probably read that later, off stream. In post-war Japan, people would sign a life insurance contract and straight out and kill themselves under the nearest train. Eventually, the life insurance companies started putting in 1-year exemption clauses in their policies. So people would sign a contract and then they have to wait 1 year before killing themselves to get the money. It was still a very good deal for desperate people, so the suicide rate spiked in the 13th month. The insurance companies extended the exemption period to 2 years. The result was that, unsurprisingly, suicide spiked on the 25th month of the contract. Go figure. Insurance agencies and the police say some men laid off from jobs have killed themselves to enable their families to live in comfort. Japan has no law mandating how insurance companies deal with policyholder suicides, and Matsuru Tanabe, spokesperson for the Life Insurance Association of Japan, famously told the Associated Press in 1999 and March 2004, the Associated Press in 1999. New sentence. In March 2004, the Japanese Supreme Court ruled that insurers must pay for suicides if the death occurs within the terms of the insurance agreement. Before I move on, I do want to mention what this is making me think about, especially because I want to also connect this with this, not necessarily anime in particular, but more the wider financial and systemic reasons that promote these things happening. There's a movie you may have heard of. It's called The Purge. If you don't know about The Purge is predicated on a what if one day crime was legal. You can murder, you can kill, you can do all those things. Quote unquote total anarchy. That's not what anarchy means. Regardless. It's actually a series of movies. They're horror films predicated on this, but they do have some pretty anti-capitalist messaging. And they actually released a movie that was like a prequel that showed like the first Purge, that showed that the first Purge was actually used to incentivize people to do it, but the people weren't doing it enough, so they actually got like cops and people from the military to start killing people to encourage this thing to be seen as normal, and was hiding the fact that the government was part of this, so people thought that just the average citizen was more violent. You know, kind of playing into some people's fears about society, that like humans at their core are inherently violent and out for themselves and will hurt you at the nearest chance they got. The point I want to make, though, in connection to all of this, is that in the second Purge movie, there is a family, and the father in the family can't make ends meet. His insurance policy, he has an insurance policy out for his like mom and pop like store. I'm pretty sure it's just like a convenience store. The night where the Purge is supposed to start, he loses his coverage. What he decides to do is he appeals to some rich people that literally were looking for poor people who were willing to be murdered, so for money for their family security. This is very similar. People who are laid off, people who can't make ends meet, if they think if they have a financial incentive to kill themselves, they're gonna do it. Didn't really think I'd be talking about The Purge right now, but yeah, in the movie they show this scene where He's like tied to a chair. He's agreed to it technically, under duress, of course, because of his situation. And you get a narration of him talking to his family through a letter that he left them, saying that y'all are gonna be taken care of, y'all are gonna be okay. I'm sorry that I'm doing this, but I had no other choice. I didn't want y'all to suffer. Same thing here. Kinda gross. Suicide is easy. Buy a manual, pick a popular spot. Novels, movies, and the spread of the internet suicide chat rooms have contributed to the suicide boom in Japan. They've also popularized some areas of as suicide landmarks. A forest near near Mount Fuji became the ideal site for committing suicide when a 1960s novel by Seiichi Matsumoto was published. The novel tells the story of a couple who meets their end in Agiakara forest. Others attribute an increase in the number of suicides to Wataru Tashimi's description of Jukai, the ocean of trees, as a perfect place to die. In his 1993 perennial best-selling book, The Complete Manual of Suicide? The fuck? That's a hell of a book title. And it's best-selling. Both books are reportedly often found along with human remains in the forest. If you didn't know, I believe there was a popular YouTuber who literally got kicked off of YouTube for a while. I believe it was Jake Paul, who went to the suicide forest, found someone who had died there, and like used them for content. Fucking disgusting. The manual for suicide seems to have been written in a way to encourage readers to choose an easy way of getting rid of problems. If your children have a copy of that book in their room, you should be aware that something might be wrong in their life, and do everything possible to prevent suicide by detecting early signs of suicide. Let's see, is there any other parts? I don't want to read this whole article. No, I think this is good. Probably will read the rest off stream. Let's move back to the other article. Thank you for Logan Paul. Thank you for the correction. Continuing on. It's weird to be like, I don't want to be a downer. Talks about suicide. Suicide is a part of our lives. One of the things that's very common for people with BPD, which we have, is consistent suicide ideation or a lot of suicide attempts, which is something we were actually in denial for a long time in our lives, because we were like, they weren't real suicide attempts. Fuck that shit. If your intent was to die, even if you didn't realize that it couldn't have happened, I think it counts enough to be of concern. Continuing. Cultural strategies. Work culture. In addition to political change, cultural changes also need to be implemented. There are strategies to be deployed in both the work environment and the consumer environment. In the work environment, a culture that fosters worker well-being must be established. Overwork is an epidemic in Japan. Even when pressure from management is absent, workers often spend excessive time working. There are cultural expectations to spend lots of time with coworkers, even outside the office. There are also complex social conditions surrounding the collectivist culture that some people exhibit compared to individualist cultures. Additionally, the harmful nature that capitalism has wreaked upon the globe has led to suicide being used as a means of providing for one's family. Having a strong network of worker protections will help alleviate some of these issues. When workers are better valued, they won't be afraid that not overworking will lead to job loss or reduced wages. No longer afraid that they won't be able to care for themselves or their families without working beyond the healthy amount. Leaders that encourage workers to take care of themselves and that it's okay to not overwork need to be established across the industry. The rapid pace of production needs to slow down, whether that means fewer projects with longer deadlines or more people in the industry. Probably both. The latter may come with better working conditions. That may have the effect of attracting more workers than just the diehard fans. More general people diluting the pool of diehard fans will likely have the subsequent effect of easing the part of the culture that is invested in the project as a means of expressing their identity as lovers of animation. When the culture consists of only diehard fans, it has the effect of all of them wanting to pour their all into the projects, beyond the point of self-care. And as atmosphere multiplies, people who aren't diehard fans feel less of a personal need to put too much of themselves into work and can cut the atmosphere to healthier levels. Stopping again to say, heck, I identify with this. We are still struggling with being able to have limits to how much we work, to how much we push ourselves. We currently are thinking about trying to limit how much we work other than the stream we do on Saturdays, on weekends, because of the sheer fact that because of our always working mentality, anytime that we're not working, we feel guilty about not working. And that just makes us feel worse and makes it hard to work, to get back to work, to work consistently, to feel good about the work that we actually do. A lot of it. Again, this stuff is not just the animation industry. This applies to a lot of labor practices, especially especially in animation, especially in art and passion-led fields. And it sucks that this is the closest we've came to a video essay in a long time. It makes me really sad. But I'm also hopeful. The former needs leaders to take a stand and agree to fewer projects, customers to be less demanding, and distancing from media conglomerates and other capitalist corporations with profit maximizations as their driving force. Customer culture. Customer desire is ever growing. VOCIFER. Vociferous, especially of a person or speech, vehement or clamorous. I love how they use other big words. I know what those words mean, but it was just like, heck, that don't help.
Vociferous.
Oh, I'm sorry, vociferous. New word today. Vociferous. 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 He was a vociferous opponent to the takeover. Vehement, outspoken, vocal, forthright, plainspoken, frank, or candid. Learning words with fluff bite. Rawr. Glad to see you're still here, Sauce, even after all this kind of depressing talk. I guess also the weird thing is I'm so at home talking about this stuff that I'm not actually depressed. I'm actually really jiving with the music right now. I'm really still in a good place, surprisingly. And just chilling. Just been listening to it while I talk to homies. Yeah, same. I don't mind. I'm glad. I hope your homies are good. Tell your homies I said hi. Customer culture. Customer desire is an ever-growing, vociferous beast, craving more and more as it eats. This needs to be tempered for the well-being of workers. The culture of anime consumers has grown so much in the last several decades, spreading beyond the borders of Japan to engulf the entire world. The increased demand has far exceeded the supply, and this has contributed to unhealthy environments for both workers and consumers. I feel that the largest issue in the consumer handbasket is misinformation. Average consumers know little about the production environment, hindered by how opaque the industry has been until relatively recently. Until the last couple of years, so much misinformation has flowed around online that now there are hordes of people with no idea how production happens, yet believing they do. The most common false statement is a generic bleat about budget, whenever any flaws manifest itself in the end product. Even praise about high budget for when production turns out great. Historically, the few Western news organizations covering the industry put most of their efforts into acting as third-party PR for selling projects, rather than as journalists holding companies to account for their actions, aided and abetted by the fact that these same companies were the ones buying advertising in their publications. This is a really big deal. The anime that we always think about when people talk about the high budget versus low budget is Evangelion, the original one. A lot of people will say, oh, it had a low budget, that's why the last two episodes had a bunch of that's why the last two episodes had like storyboards for a lot of it and unfinished scenes, because you might notice that some of the same scenes end up in End of Evangelion. But Hideki Anno's mental health was also a big contributing factor, and the fact that they had to in the latter half of the series scrap a lot of their plans because it was too similar to the Tokyo gas attacks that happened during the production, and they didn't want to be insensitive to the terrorist attack that happened and the people who were affected, so they had to rewrite half the fucking series. Hideki Anno and just people in general, like in the production team and in anime at large, have a really strict schedule. Getting stuff out week to week is really hard, and there have been multiple people saying in that production in particular that people had to work literally week to week. Hideki Anno at the beginning of the week would like give out very rough storyboards and maybe a script, and like would be working probably a lot of overtime to do this sort of stuff. And a lot of people blame budget constraints for this type of stuff, and it's like, it ain't budget constraints. It's not. I finished my pizza. It was filling. This has been interesting to listen to. I'm glad. I appreciate being entertaining, but I also like being educational. Heck. The most common false statement is a generic bleat about budget. Whenever any flaw manifests itself in the end product, even praise about high budget from when production turns out great. Historically, the few Western news organizations covering the industry put most of their efforts into acting as third-party PR for selling projects, rather than as journalists holding companies to account for their actions, aided and abetted by the fact that these same companies were the ones buying advertising in their publications. Misinformed people also throw around names of studios as if they are living entities that create animation. This is the shit that gamers especially need to take to heart. Capcom didn't make Resident Evil. People made Resident Evil. Fucking CD Projekt Red did not make Cyberpunk 2077. People made Cyberpunk 2077. Like, Nintendo did not make Pokemon. Game Freak did not make Pokemon. Their employees did. And it only serves those conglomerates to obfuscate the people who are making them. And even me being like, ooh, Hideki Anno, like the putting people on a pedestal also happens in the same way. People like Hideo Kojima, famous for Metal Gear Solid. Even Satoshi Kon. A lot of people are looking to these people as visionaries, as auteurs, and ignoring the huge amount of people that it took to create these things. Even streamers are not alone. The background that is my overlay right now was made by someone who was okay with credit to have this used as art assets. All the pictures of my headmates were made by people. Shit. My fucking girlfriend was coaching me through making this very overlay that's here right now. Even people who are their own like small little entities, you're not alone. Like, people make stuff not in isolation. Everything comes from somewhere. Even the skills you have come from somewhere. You had to, even people who are self-taught, use YouTube videos for example. It's, no one's an island. Everything that has been made is in some way tied to what's come before it. Heck. What about the person who was the guy who was the head of Mighty Number 9? Ooh, Kenji Inafune? Oh shit. I remember Kenji Inafune. I was so hyped about Mighty Number 9 because Kenji Inafune literally hadn't been really a big part of the Mega Man series after, I think, like Mega Man 7, Mega Man 8. and his influence is still felt. The guy who made Bloodstained, that is the spiritual successor slash the new Castlevania games, like the authorship of those people is what brought those projects into massive funding on like Kickstarter or whatever. And of course, Bloodstained ended up being very good. A lot of people were very happy about Bloodstained, but Mighty Number 9 was insulting its own goddamn fan base while asking for even more money after the fact. I don't know if most people know this, but Mighty Number 9 also did an additional Kickstarter for an anime tied to it before Mighty Number 9 had even finished production. Fucking heckin'. What about the guy who was the head of Mighty Number 9? Not the rest of the team. The guy who people said was the father of Mega Man. Like, Mega Man was made by a whole team, not just one guy. fucking heck. Yeah, you're completely right, Issy. All these things are not just made by one person. And of course, when you go to, when people might say in response, okay, you're right about that, but Toby Fox made Undertale on his own. Well, even projects that are mainly one person, art assets are still a thing. Sometimes you have to commission art for characters. That's a thing. Speaking of Undertale in general, like he did write music, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't just, wake up one day and was like, I have all the music and just wrote it down. Like, there is a process. Maybe not even music theory, but like even inspiration is its due. And I'm sure that Toby didn't do everything from the ground up. I can't speak specifically about where everything came from, and I don't want to step on my own toes by asserting that certain things were not him. But like, no one is an island. The whole team who worked on Bloodstained did great. I agree. Mighty Number 9 was such a something. Fuck, I'm still kind of heated about like an anime fan on prom night. That made us cry like an anime fan on prom night. I hadn't even read that part. I hadn't even read that part of the chat yet. That's literally the like meme. That's literally the meme. Everyone's gonna remember when fucking we're all dead and gone. People are gonna remember anime fan on prom night. Toby Fox got help from Timmy. Thank you. I was hoping someone more knowledgeable would chime in. Heck. I said it made me cry for the meme. Okay, gotcha. Heckin'. Whew. Sorry, I got a lot heated. And I mean that literally, like I think my temperature went up. Not even angry, just passionate. I forgot my place. And I've been starting back from before I knew my place was when I went back anyway, but still. Let's see. I'll just start from the beginning of the paragraph. Misinformed people also throw around names of studios as if they are living entities that create animation, rather than the humans that work inside them. This fosters the impression that the company has some sort of primacy at the expense of real humans. This is dangerous as it dehumanizes people, making companies seem like machines churning out projects. I feel that counteracting this danger is the primary goal of Sakuga, the celebration of animation technique. The celebration of technique is tied inexorably to the artists themselves, humanizing them, giving names and faces to the work itself, fostering a healthier relationship between consumers and producers. If consumers can see producers as individual humans, not as faceless companies, it's more likely that they will be more supportive of their rights, not just demanding product to be consumed. It will hopefully encourage consumers to fight for the rights alongside workers, putting pressure from both sides on companies to improve working conditions. This is actually something we want to talk about in our Amori essay, which is another reason why we're so pissed that we haven't gotten it out yet, because there's so much we want to talk about and why it's going to be so long. Even indie developers are not exempt from this. as I was just saying, with using like Undertale as an example, or even Amori. They had a team, and they literally were crunching themselves. They literally said they were, like, for real. And one primary resource that we got for the essay, someone who talked in another video essay about working conditions in gaming, talked about how even for smaller projects, even when the person's not the auteur, people tend to get fucking blasted on social media, fucking given death threats, or even especially as someone who is just available to be talked to about the game in question, might get harassment based on the game not being out. Something that I remember specifically is like, oh, you must not be a real game developer. You must not be a professional if you don't know when your game's gonna release. Amori got pushed back several times specifically. And OmoCat literally made the Amori release date Christmas, so it could be a gift to that community. And to themselves, of course. And to herself, of course. But it was a big deal, and I'm sure the team got their fair share of harassment. Dragon in the heat, ooh woo. I'm gonna drink water now, cause I'm hot. Dragon belchies. Crunch time. Proceeds to stop time itself. Whew, wait, I need to take a second. Literally all the words started blurring. Heck, I'm way too excited. I love talking about this stuff. I know it's like really fucked up shit too, but like, oh, I'm so passionate about this. Good job hydrating like a big girl. Thank you. Actually, let me see if the vape is done charging, or at least charging enough so I can use it. How is everybody? I hope whatever you're doing in the background is going well too. I never expect to be the forefront of everyone who's watching's attention, and that's totally okay. So I want to make sure that anyone within the sound of my voice is feeling okay. And if you're not feeling okay, feel free to talk about it in chat. Just be respectful, you know? Been looking at shirataki noodle recipes. Ooh. I should look at noodle recipes more often. We eat noodles so fucking often. Heck. Real comfy THB. Is that supposed to be TBH? I read it as TBH in my head. I was like, oh wait, that's dyslexia. I'm pretty sure that means TBH. I'm glad you're good, Sauce Issy and Snack. And anyone who's lurking too. Just because you haven't been talking in chat doesn't mean you're not valued here. I want to reiterate that. Do it. Sesame peanut noodle recipes. Ooh, I love putting peanut butter in my noodles. Like cooking them and stuff. Oh, it makes it so rich and thick. Dragon's breath. Luckily, I'm not allergic to peanuts. I'm not allergic to any food that I know of. The only thing we're allergic to that we know of is cats. And we don't have any desire to eat cats. Excuse me. Imagine a world where cats are domesticated and globally are seen as a fine thing to eat. That'd be weird. Obviously, how humans have cultivated livestock and how they've bred and raised domesticated animals is the main reason that cats and dogs are seen as friends, not food. if you can humanize or like feel sympathy for the thing, then of course it's harder to kill it and eat it. Which is why people are like, pigs? Ew, pigs are blah, blah, blah. They say bad things about pigs, like pigs are disgusting or something. Because it's easier to be fine with or neutral about the death of something that's not, that you don't like, that you see as gross. For a second, I thought you were gonna say you like putting peanut butter in your diapers. My mind auto-finished your sentence. Very weird. Now I want to put peanut butter in my diapers. Damn it, Inception. Anyway. There you go. For all the people waiting for that dragon snorties. I know y'all fuckers love it. That one was on purpose. Another action that needs to happen on the customer side is to temper the obsession with analyzing facets like sales figures and licensing agreements and other industrial processes without also always including the human factor. Nerd culture often hones in on facts and figures and memorization and the like, but neglects the human cost of capitalist processes. I call on those prone to performing these types of information acquisition to leaven their study by pausing frequently to consider how human people are impacted by these processes. Don't automatically yield to the "this is how things work" mindset. Realize that there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. That to engage in this field is to participate in exploitation of workers. And to counterbalance that by fighting nonstop for workers' rights. Question the status quo with every breath. Look for any and all opportunities to disrupt the power hierarchy. I also call to those who use the content of the animation industry to develop their own content to understand their own role in the exploitation of workers and to take steps to mitigate the damage. Participate in the strategies listed above. Always give credit to all humans involved in the creation of the work you're using, not just companies. If you're making money, try to give compensation as well. These humans are the ones you rely on. You couldn't exist without them. So don't become another exploiter. This includes the people working for licensing companies. Contracts don't free you from the moral obligation to support the humans who you rely on for your very existence. You need to fight for their rights alongside your own. Sorry, I saw goes together like peanut butter and dragon fruit. And I'm just like, ugh. Nah, I just want to jump into a pool of peanut butter. Is that a fetish? Everything's a fetish. Never mind. I just want the sensory stuff though. But also, I've never actually had dragon fruit before. Yeah, sorry, I haven't cannibalized my own kind yet. But now I'm like literally the first time I try it, I'm literally gonna have a bite and then I'm gonna have a bite with peanut butter. Just see what it tastes like. What you, the ordinary person, can do to help these strategies come to fruition is multifold. Support the use of them in your own local area, participating in them yourself if possible. Suggest to others to participate as well. Study them to learn more about them and share the information with others. Put pressure on the elected officials that represent you to support unions, labor rights, etc. I need water again. Ha. Woof. Whoa, dragon belchies. Excusies. Be sure to take deep breaths sometimes. There's like the thing about like, oh, if you're hyperventilating, remind yourself to take deep breaths. But you don't just you don't always like hyperventilate when you panic too. You also do it when you're excited. I was kind of running out of breath and I couldn't figure out why. It's been a while, but my memory considers it kind of pearish. Oh, that's what I've heard as well. I've done research. You have to do research before you do cannibalism, obviously. And pears are fucking badass. I love pears. Pears can fucking get it. Gosh, I'm talking about pears as if they... Now I want to meet a pear dragon. If there's a pear dragon VTuber, let me know. I want to collab with them. Let's see. What you, the ordinary person, can do to help these strategies come to fruition is multifold. Support the use of them in your own local area, participating in them yourself if possible. Suggest to others to participate as well. Study them to learn more about them and share that information with others. Put pressure on the elected officials to represent you to support unions, labor rights, etc. Ask them to introduce new laws, support laws already on the books, etc. Join organizations, or donate money or time to them. Create your own party organizations. Join in protests, petitions, boycotts. Write letters to newspapers and other publications encouraging support for workers' rights. Labor improvements in one locale or industry can improve others, particularly seeing the number of national and international organizations that umbrella over smaller ones, joining small pockets of power into larger masses of power. Here are a couple of the most accessible actions you can take. Follow organizations like Anime Support, AEYAC, and JNECA through social media, sharing their missions online and offline, donating money if you can. Join labor organizations and political movements in your area, such as the DSA in the US. Read trusted sources to remove information and replace it with correct information. Ooh, dragon breath. I recommend Sakagua blog for accurate animation information and for better understanding capitalism. Labor and Monopoly Capital by Harris Braverman. I also recommend putting pressure on US companies by writing letters, actual physical letters. Emails and social media can easily be ignored or lost in the fray. Handwritten letters or typed, if your handwriting is illegible, like mine is, will grab attention, especially if we write lots of them. A list of addresses of animation/manga licensing companies is at the end of this post. Be firm but polite, and demand better working conditions for employees both in the US and in Japan if their company is part of a production committee. None of these are perfect or flawless actions, but that doesn't invalidate implementing them. I sometimes see complaints about flaws in solutions used as justifications for abandoning them, which is quite frustrating. No single one of these strategies will solve the issues because that's how it works. There are never a sole savior to swoop in and make everything better. Solutions are jigsaw puzzles. No one piece completes a puzzle on its own, and a puzzle needs all of its pieces to be completed. All these strategies and more need to be implemented. These and hundreds, thousands more working in tandem will fill in the picture bit by bit, because that's what life is. Humans working together to achieve what any lone individual cannot. And these are all the addresses. So this is fucking based. I need a Medium account, I think. Is this even a Medium article? I just assumed it was a Medium article because it just seems in the style of one. A 14-minute read. Fluffbite makes an hour out of it. You should consider deep breaths point redeem. These deep breath endorphins are also so good and welcome sometimes. Ooh, that's actually really smart. Thank you. You could call it photosynthesis. Ooh.